of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for invocation by Dr. Jim Ricketts from North Chapel. Welcome, Dr. Ricketts. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Would you please bow your head for a word of prayer? Almighty God, creator of the universe, King of kings and Lord of lords, we come before you as your humble servants. We come in high praise and thanksgiving for all the blessings you have bestowed upon this great country. Tonight I ask that you find favor with this town council and the task before them. I ask for your wisdom and knowledge for them this evening as they address the issues before this day. Let this group work in peace and harmony so this community will receive the benefits of your counsel and your wisdom. We thank you, Almighty God, for this day, for these community leaders as they strive to serve you in an enlightened manner. Let us each set aside our differences for the benefit of this community as they address serious problems this evening. We ask for your guidance and your direction in all areas, and bless this meeting and bless this community. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Roll call, please. Beth?
Mayor Schlum,
Here.
Councilmember Contino,
Here.
Vice Mayor Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Dickey, here, Councilmember Elke,
Here.
Councilmember Hanson, here, Councilmember Lachey.
Here. All right, welcome everyone. First we'll get on to some public appearances and presentations, and we've got some great news to share and some thanks to give. First item is recognition of firefighters and staff involved in a recent life-saving event at the community center. And I've got a little synopsis of what occurred in case folks weren't aware. On November 18, 2010, a Fountain Hills resident was in attendance at the community center event and fell ill. She didn't want anyone to activate the 911 system, an astute staff member convinced the resident to allow him to call 911 on her behalf. Fountain Hills Fire Department crews from Station 1 responded quickly to the scene. The patient was in mild distress and did not really show any serious symptoms upon their arrival. Diagnostic medical equipment was attached to the patient and the evaluation was made. The state-of-the-art equipment along with the emergency response training demonstrated that the patient was having a significant heart attack. Appropriate treatment was quickly initiated and the patient was taken to the hospital by ambulance. Because the Fountain Hills Fire Department is equipped with the latest technology that helps to identify problems early and transmit patient data to doctors at the hospital, the patient was able to bypass the emergency department and go directly to the catheterization lab for definitive treatment. While being treated in the lab, the patient went into cardiac arrest and was resuscitated successfully. The patient was then taken to the ICU in stable condition. This Fountain Hills resident is alive today because everyone that was involved in the chain of survival did their jobs extremely well. We would like to recognize Reno Getty from the Community Center staff for recognizing the need for 911 to be activated, and the crew from the Fountain Hills Rural Metro Fire Department and Rural Metro Ambulance, Captain Paramedic Todd Brunin, Firefighter Scott Prentice, EMT Bill Steinke, and Paramedic Mike Downey. Thank you for doing your jobs so well and contributing to the safety and well-being of our residents. And for all those that were involved, and if you're here, please come forward so we can recognize you. Thank you. And as a representative of our community, guys, we just thank you very much for all that you do and those things that we don't mention. We want to thank you for all those life-saving events and the differences you make in our community, and particularly for this woman that you saved. I'm sure there's been a lot of things coming your way, but it's just an example that we illustrate tonight that just shows your dedication and good works for our community, and we thank you very much, very much. That is a very cool story. And now we're going to move right on to some additional thanks for folks that have served our community on the commissions and have fulfilled their terms and are moving on. First, I'm going to invite everybody to come up when your name's read, and then we'll get you a nice certificate to recognize your accomplishments. We've got a recognition of Senior Services Advisory Commissioner Bruce Florence for his contributions, recognition of the Community Center Advisory Commission's Leona Johnston and Sharon Morgan for their contributions, recognition of McDowell Mountain Preservation Commissioners Lena Bellanier and Kurt Cornum for their contributions, and finally, recognition of Parks and Recreation Commissioner Paul Colwait for his contributions. And if you're all, I think you're all here, so it's terrific. Come on forward, and I've got a certificate, and would like to thank you very much. Come on over here. I think we can get a large. And these folks illustrate great opportunities for our residents to serve on the commissions and to benefit their community in areas that they're interested in or have skills in. And we thank you very much for the years of service you've all given to your community, and will continue to give even though you're not on the commission. I know you'll still be involved. So thank you very much. You're welcome to stay the entire evening. Thank you again. All right, now we'll move on to the call to the public. Do we have some speaker cards at the call to the public?
No, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Moving on to our consent agenda, and we're going to give a brief summary of each of these items. I'll do my best. Of the items that are on consent agenda, these items are not, actually we're going to take off item number 2 and put that on the regular agenda. So items 1, 3, 4, and 5 will remain on the consent agenda. And I'll give a brief summary of those, and then we'll look to approve the consent agenda as listed. First item on our consent agenda is consideration of the Town Council meeting minutes from December 14th and 16th, 2010. Item 3 is consideration of temporary use permit for Sofrita Restaurant for repeating outdoor events throughout 2011. Item number 4 is consideration of special event liquor license application submitted by Sharon Elaine Morgan, representing the Fountain Hills Chamber of Commerce, for an annual dinners awards event to be held on January 22nd, 2011 from 5 to 10. And item 5, consideration of approving a liquor license application submitted by Jeffrey Scott Lessig for Sunridge Canyon Golf for a Series 6 bar license, replacing existing license due to ownership change. Could I get a motion to approve items 1, 3, 4, and 5 as listed?
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Councilmember Dickey? Aye. Mayor Schlum?
Aye.
Councilmember Leger?
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson? Aye. Vice Mayor Brown?
Abstain, I wasn't at the meeting.
Councilmember Contino?
Aye.
Councilmember Elke?
Aye.
Mayor 6-0.
Thank you very much. Move on to our regular agenda, starting with number 6. I'm sorry, we'll go back. Number 2. Thanks, Councilmember Hanson. I can feel you looking at me.
Well,
We took our consent agenda item number 2 off. We'll consider that first. Consideration of purchasing 3 thermal imaging cameras from First In Inc. in the amounts of $25,811.85. And we wanted to make sure it was clear about further good news on that item. So we have Randy here to speak to us on that item. Welcome, Randy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you recall, you guys approved the accepting the grant from the state's Public Safety Stabilization Fund in the amount of $28,000. And we thought with this money we'd be able to buy 2 very nice top-of-the-line, state-of-the-art cameras, but we were able to find a state contract with the city of Peoria, and with that, we were able to buy actually 3 cameras for $25,811.85. So 3 cameras, and they'll be completely covered by this grant. There'll be no matching funds from the town.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on this item?
Good job.
Yeah, good job. So grant money is funding this, and again, you went over this in a previous meeting, but it's thermal imaging, so in a fire, you can see things
Yeah.
that you want to make sure you can see.
Correct, Mayor. What this is for is it has technology that allows us to see through the smoke, so we can find possibly downed victims, or we can find a firefighter that might get lost or get into trouble. We can also find hot spots in walls and things like that, so it sees through walls too. Great technology. It's really required in the fire service nowadays.
Good, thanks again. All right, now I'll look for a motion to approve the purchase of 3 thermal imaging cameras from First Inc. in the amount of $25,811.85.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. All right, now we'll go to item number 6, consideration of calling a special election for the purpose of submitting to the qualified electors of the Town of Fountain Hills referendum 2010-RF-001-01 and directing the town manager and town clerk and town attorney to prepare all materials and take all steps necessary to ensure compliance with the applicable law, and approving a budget transfer for approximately $55,150 from the town manager's contingency fund to the town clerk's election budget to cover anticipated associated election costs. I'll call on Bev or Andrew. Who's going to go first on this item?
Probably me, Mayor.
All right, thanks, Bev.
Just to review, the referendum petitions were filed with the clerk's office on December 7th. This was with regard to ordinance 10-08, which was adopted by the council on November 4th. The petitions were reviewed by the town clerk and the Maricopa County Recorder's Office as required by law, and the signatures appear to be adequate in number to place the referred measure on the ballot. However, the next step is now for the council to determine when the election will be held. The town code has a provision in it that says that a special election may be called no less than 90 days, no more than 150 days from the presentation of the certificate by the clerk. That puts it on the May 17th, 2011 ballot. The alternative is that it can be placed on the town's next regular election, which would not be held until March of 2012 or May of 2012. Notification requirements are that we let the county know 120 days prior to the date of the election that we're going to be holding an election, which puts the deadline to call the May 17th election on January 17th, 2011. So our time frame is very short. The next notification is the 105-day ballot language deadline, and the same 120 and 105-day notification requirements apply to the May and March election of 2012. Election costs. Regular ground election, which would be the one where we have our polling sites, would cost approximately $55,000. If we were to have a town election, an all-mail ballot election, it would be about $50,000. If it happens to fall that it is a consolidated ballot with a state measure on it, it would be reduced considerably. It would be about $22,000, but again, we would not be able to hold an all-mail ballot. Election procedures, we would offer a ballot box here at Town Hall. Those ballots would be picked up by the county on a regular basis. We would also have the county recorder's offices be 3 early voting sites for our citizens who wanted to vote during the early voting period. And of course, then the polling sites would be open on election day from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. A mail ballot would require that we have a ballot box placed at Town Hall for those voters who did not want to return the ballot by mail. And with that, I'd also ask that the council make a budget transfer for this election because it's not in my budget at this time. It would have to come from the manager's contingency fund, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Good, thanks. Andrew, anything you want to add before we get the discussion going? And we also have speaker cards on here, I suspect.
Yes, Mayor, we do.
All right. How about we hear from the speaker cards at this point?
We have 5 cards. First speaker would be Dina Galassini, and then Linda Bardot.
come on, yes. Welcome, Dina. Thank you. Ms. Galassini, welcome.
Here I am again. Testing. My name is Dina Galassini, and I would like to state for the record that the referendum petition regarding ordinance 10-0-8 and the single hauler of trash, regarding the single hauler of trash issue calls for specifically a general election, not a special election as some people are led to believe. I just wanted to say from my experience gathering the signatures, I have met some of the greatest residents who signed the petitions and also the petition gatherers. They were great people, great experience. The petition gatherers took their time to get the signatures aside from their work and families. A few of these people are involved in the Tea Party movement. I had firsthand experience with how kind these people are. They are concerned for our country like a lot of people are. We are all in this together. That said, I care for my country too. But the major decision that our representatives made in favor of the single hauler of trash should have involved the people with a vote. The people should have decided, and the town council should have trusted, accepted, and believed in the ability of the people paying the bills to decide, not them. The decision made by our council has the potential to greatly impact residents' lives, and they could end up paying for it. I've learned in life that it's all about the buck. Whether you make money off Allied's franchise fees or the landfill's tipping fees, you're going to make the hauler pay back something, and it will cost the customer. We have a right to know what your plans are to make money. Your decision was forced on us, and I feel a hidden agenda here. But whatever type of election you favor this evening, the result of the election will be what the people choose, not a wavering town council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda Bardot, and then Hugh Henry.
Welcome, Ms. Bordeaux.
Good evening, council members. Nice to see you again. I've spoken a number of times, and I'm actually speaking on behalf of myself and my husband, Peter, this evening, who's got a scheduling conflict, so he's not here. I've spoken a number of times about the issue. I went and Googled Allied and Republic and litigation today, and was kind of staggered by the amount of litigation that's in and around that search result. So if anybody on the council or at home watching wants to give that a whirl, it might surprise you. My main concern about the trash issue for right now is the fact that I don't think our town needs to spend $50,000 on a special election. If we're really looking to spend $15,000, the food bank could actually use our help. There's a lot of people who are in need right now, and they are desperately low. I've been collecting some food and trying to help generate some business for them. So I think $50,000 from the town would be better spent there. We did, when we started out on this endeavor of getting a vote to the public, we were exercising our opportunity under our Constitution to have our vote heard, not to afford the town a $50,000 cash, deficit to make our vote heard. So I guess that's pretty much simply it. I say that we don't spend the $50,000, let it wait till 2012, and just put it on the regular ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bordeaux.
Hugh Henry, then Jeff Cohen.
Welcome, Mr. Henry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Hugh Henry. Short message. I would not be in favor of a special election at this time. I don't think it's necessary. If you're going to spend $50,000, put it on the streets. I think they're in more need than we are to resolve that issue immediately. The reason why I'm concerned, it leads to the nanny state type philosophies that I see too much in our societies today. I believe in free enterprise, freedom of choice. In our community, just a few years ago, a neighbor and I, in a 3-week period, caught 14 rats because we back up to a reserve. And it's very irritating to say we've got to have one pickup per week when we could just as well have 2 and not have any real problems. But to go further than that, there are some people that don't even take out their garbage even every other week because it's a single party in a home and they just don't put it out. So there's really about 3 different marketplaces out there. One for twice a week, some for 1 a week, and some for every other week. And I think that's the way we should look at this problem, not just one thing fits all. I don't think it's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henry.
Jeff Cohen, and then Robert Tripp.
Welcome, Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Your Honorable Mayor and City Council members. First of all, I want to thank you because I know every one of you have made decisions that are very difficult decisions, and you're doing the best of your abilities or what you think is correct. I would also like to point out that the citizens of Fountain Hills, or the Fountain Hills Citizens for Responsive Government, that's a group of 20-plus people. We came together believing our only choice to oppose what you did was a referendum. That was our constitutional right. That's what we held. A lot of things were said in the paper, and I'd like to point out specifically to the Fountain Hills Times, since they are here, that they have done more to divide this town in the name of selling papers than is responsible. I mean, just if they would have done their investigative reporting, would have been great. With that said, I've got to read here a little bit here. $50,000, obviously, we're taking that from a contingency fund versus money we have set aside. In these economic times, do we really need to think about spending $50,000 for a general election? If you take a look, or for a special election, if you take a look what our referendum asked for, which we had double the number of signatures in less than half the time. Basically, the signatures were gained in a little bit more than a week. And it specifically stated, at the next general election, okay, that this would be chosen by the people at the next general election. We feel that what the town council did was force a tax on the people, okay, by forcing us to use one manufacturer or one supplier, okay, regardless of the costs go up, you've taken away our right for choice and you've forced us to use one company. That is basically a tax. If you feel that that's what you want to do, for gosh sakes, tax us. But that still has to go to the vote of the people. So I think that's something that you really should look at, okay? It's basically a forced tax. I hear a lot about, the Tea Party. I love that. I'm one of the founders of the Tea Party here. The Tea Party, 3 tenets of the Tea Party: fiscal responsibility, free market principles, and freedom of choice. I think this referendum hits all 3 of those. So I'd really like you to take a look at it during your discussion times to allow this to go to the next general election versus spending $50,000 of the town's money, so the Fountain Hills Times can write more articles concerning how our group has forced this town to do a special election. We have not forced it. If this does get voted on for a special election, it is directly on the on your hands, basically. So that's all I have to say. I wish you well with your discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen.
Bob Tripp.
Welcome, Mr. Tripp.
Hey, Bob Tripp, Tombstone Avenue. I think I may be a minority of one tonight, because I happen to feel that the town council has done a fantastic job over the last few years in a very bad economic time, having to cut staff, having to cut budget. They've shown they can take the hard items. The town has came forward and said they wanted recycling, okay? They took that, and they've had dozens and dozens of meetings and staff meetings, reports to look at this thing thoroughly. It's not been, shoot from the hip. They were well considered over a period of time. Well, I'd rather not have seen a referendum come up. I think it's a waste of time and money. $50,000 at this time is not all that much money. The budget shows this can save the residents $500,000 a year. I figured on my own thing it would save me $200 a year going from what I have now, and so on. If you take a population of 20,000 people plus or minus, that's $2.50 a person. It's not going to break our backs, and so on. A couple of years from now, we're going to be asked to vote on a street bond. Can you go to the people in good faith and say, we want to vote on street money, we can't take our streets now, we're having too many trash things? So I say, let's get this thing over with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tripp. That's it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. All right. Andrew, anything further for us right now, or are you just going to have dialogue, discussions, motions, such?
Mr. Mayor, we might as well get to a few of the questions that I know that you've heard and will want an answer to anyway, so we'll knock those out right away. The petition stating that this was a request to have a general election, I'm not aware of and was not able to find any kind of case law or statutory or constitutional provisions that allow an initiative or a referendum petition to change the town code provision or the state statutory provision on how the election will be called. So, while I understand the position that's being taken, I don't believe it has any legal foundation, and none has been presented to us. There's been a repeated request that this should have gone to the vote of the people prior to the town council making decisions. Under state law, there is only one type of question that can go for what we call an advisory election, and that is a transportation question, and that's specifically authorized by statute. All other advisory elections are not permitted by state law. So you could not have put it to the people ahead of your own decision. The contract is revenue neutral. The town receives no revenue and pays nothing out other than for its own services. So whatever revenue streams have been discussed are between the contractor and the people from whom they pick up trash. Everything between the town and the contractor is strictly whatever the town pays for the services it contracts with. As we know, that the options are involve 2 pickups a week along with recycling, involve 1 pickup a week along with recycling. Those are both available under the current contract as well. I think those are the only things that were raised that need to be addressed.
And so if you would, for our decision tonight, we have to come up with a date for, to call an election because the referendum being successful. So our choices tonight are to decide between May 17th or the March election of next year.
That's correct.
All right, thank you. Council members, questions, discussion items? Councilmember Dickey?
Motion.
Certainly.
I'd like to make a motion, please, to place referendum 2010 RF00-01 on the special election ballot for May 17th, 2011, directing the town manager, the town clerk, and town attorney to prepare all materials and take all necessary steps to ensure compliance with applicable law, and approve a budget transfer from the manager's contingency fund in the amount of $55,150 to the town clerk's election budget to cover anticipated associated election costs.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, discussion on the motion? Anyone, Councilmember? Councilmember Hanson.
Actually, I had a question for Bev. Bev, in the packet, when it referred to possibly having the election at the next regularly scheduled primary election, it also indicated that there would have to be a budget transfer from the manager's contingency fund. And I was just wondering why we would need that transfer if it was a year out. It would just be part of the budget.
We wouldn't. I would put it in the budget for next year.
Okay, thank you. And then I think I'd like to clarify that some of the public may not realize that if this was placed on the general election in May of 2012, there's a possibility that there may not be a regularly scheduled May election in 2012. There will be a council and mayor election in March of 2012. If all the candidates, now this is a little, little chance, but if all the candidates were elected outright, there would not be a May election. So it would almost end up costing more because it would force a second election in that spring schedule. So I just wanted to point that out so that if we were looking at having the election in 2012, the primary in March is actually preferable because for sure we will be having an election then.
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Elke.
Bev, just one of the costs that you might, if we were to have the election in March of 2012, the cost there would be, as I understand, approximately $14,000 to add this item to that ballot. Is that correct?
Correct. That would include the publicity pamphlet that we would have to create and publicize all the election notices and the translations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Councilmember Dickey.
Mayor, and I wanted to ask Bev or Andrew if it would be possible, if we do it in May of 2011, would we have enough time to do all mail-in ballots, which would also save $5,000 or so?
I believe so.
Yeah, I believe that we're within the time frames that would allow you to do that. understanding that it would require a code amendment that would then need 30 days to run its course before it became effective. But the drop-dead date for the mail-in ballot is going to be sometime prior to when they have to start issuing notices. So you have enough time, but it would be fairly close. If that were the direction of the council, we would need to be back to you at your next meeting with that ordinance to make the change. But keeping in mind that we will probably need to draft it flexibly to allow you to choose between either a mail ballot or one where you have polling locations, because we've been alerted that there is a possibility, when we have no way of knowing, probably close till March, that there may be a statewide ballot measure in May that will be put on the ballot later on after we would have already met our deadlines. If that's the case, we cannot have a mail-in ballot. We'd have to go to polling locations and the normal election process.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor, so if we have to do it by ourselves, we could have an all-mail-in ballot. If there's another election called by the state, we couldn't have all mail-in ballots, but we would share the expense, because there would be another election that was going to happen whether we did this or not.
It would be almost half the cost if the state were to put a measure on at the same time.
We don't have any assurance of that happening yet.
None whatsoever.
Okay. Good. And if there are no more questions, I'll ask a couple of mine. If we put this, choose to potentially move it to 2012 election, what would happen to the process that we've gone through, that we've taken 2+ years to get through, and all the time and deliberation and public meetings? Where would we be at that time if, in fact, an election were held in March of 2012 and let's say it passed to be in favor of this action?
Yeah, if an election were held in 2012 that upheld the council's decision, then the process for having single hauler trash collection would be in place, but the contract that you have currently now signed wouldn't be around anymore. We've talked to Allied Waste to ask them if they'd be willing to essentially toll their contract for the period of time until 2012, holding it such that if the election was upheld, the election upheld the council's action, that then we would kick off from essentially a year later, and their response was that they can't hold the prices for that period of time. So because of that, if you decide to go to next spring for the election, we'd recommend that you exercise your provision in the contract to terminate by convenience and just walk away from that until you get past the election, find out what the voters have to say, and then you can go back out utilizing the same RFP process that you did last time and solicit new bids in summer of 12.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Councilman Morelki?
So in that scenario, since we already have the RFP in place, there'd be some adjustments to it, but then we'd be accepting bids and then have an additional forum where folks could come in and express their views one way or another, essentially.
We would have the same discussion with respect to the contract, but the discussions with respect to the process and the regulations would be done. It would only be the administrative process of issuing the RFP, reviewing the submissions, and then bringing a recommendation before the council again.
In essence, there had been an election, a lot of people would have come out and voted if, in fact, it was in favor of the council decision again, regardless of what the election time is. We'd still have to address it unless we go in May and call for the election and it passes. We may not have to go through the entire process again. We could utilize what we have in place. If we go to next year, 13 months or so from now, we would have to go through the process again as far as the looking for bidders, and we would likely have another discussion, and we'd have council meetings or public meetings, take some additional comments, but at that point we'd only be doing so as if the election had been in the affirmative for the council decision. Therefore, the majority of the voters had voted in favor, but there still could be additional comments from the public, of course. Okay. yeah, we mentioned the cost. Anything else? Thank you for the dialogue. Thanks for the public comments. Councilmember Dickey.
Mayor, just one more thing, that just to reiterate, I guess, if we put it off, we're not only jeopardizing, we're basically killing the $11.44. We're really taking that off the table if we delay, because, and then the 3-year, obviously the 3-year price freeze is pretty, you know, half of that would be gone by the time we did it. So we really, and I guess I bring this up because a friend of mine who lives in the northwest section of town just got her quarter bill, and it's $75 for one pickup, one recycle. So another whole, the more we delay, she really would save $165 a year, $40 a quarter, pretty much, you know, right now, or at least in July, if we would have started in July. So that weighs on me, that we would really have to start again, and the chances of getting that good of a negotiated deal that we did on behalf, just like other entities do, just like HOAs do, and just like, you know, the school district gets together other school districts and buys things because you get that economies of scale. I feel like that's really what we did. It was a business transaction that utilized these things, so I'm reluctant to lose that, what we got, what that response was.
Thank you. Councilmember Alke.
I just want to make sure I understand, Councilmember Dickey, did you say $75 a month?
A quarter.
$75 a quarter is what she's paying?
It's like $25 a month.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes.
I think we need to keep in mind too, though, that we've also heard from folks that say we'll be paying more with this contract, whether because they live in an association or a condominium, or, you know, they've gotten a pretty good deal for themselves right now. So it's not like everybody will be paying less. I think we need to keep that in mind as well. And as far as going through the process again, I think, you know, none of us have a crystal ball. And it's quite possible that we could maybe even do better. You know, who knows where the economy is going to be, what the competition would be. So I don't think we can just say we're going to lose a great deal that we have with the assumption that we might not do better.
And one other thing to be of concern too is we've heard some speakers, specifically from Rubbish Solutions, that have come up here and have made some rumblings about the RFP process. And what occurred during that time, and certainly when the council made this vote, it was after 12:30 at night, and you know, I think the council's obviously got everybody's attention on this particular issue, and giving them some time and an opportunity to be heard again on this, I think would be valuable.
Anything further? Councilmember Leger.
If I may direct my comment to our town attorney. There's been a lot of dialogue. This has been a spirited discussion, and I don't think I'm going to move through each and every comment that has been made this evening, which are repetitious comments and comments that we've heard in several public meetings, but I do appreciate the feedback and the fact that people are passionate and have come forward on this. But with respect to what I just heard, it's my understanding, specifically with Rubbish Solution, that they did have some issues. And Andrew, were those discussed, were those addressed at the beginning of this process?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Leger, we had discussions with them informally about how their concerns were going to be addressed within the bidding process. We had 4 bidders who submitted under the RFP as it was issued, and we were awaiting a bid to be able to address that with them, but never received a bid. So they did not participate in the process, so it made it impossible to address their bid with them after they had submitted. We don't believe there's a flaw in the bidding process. We don't agree with their position, and are happy to stand behind the RFP process.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Andrew. I do have one more comment, and I want to state my position on this. Bev, did you have a card there?
Mayor, did you want to allow readdress?
I think we're done. I think if it's, unless it's a new person that
No,
hadn't shared
it's one
something.
who spoke.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I may, just in closing, this has been a long discussion and debate, if you may. It certainly has been a spirited debate. In the past several months, there have been many verbal and written comments made discussing the pros and the cons of moving to a single trash hauler. Both proponents and opponents have been very passionate about this initiative. There are people that are very much in favor of moving to a single trash hauler, and there are those that are very passionately opposed to it, as evidenced by the number of signatures that we received, and as evidenced by the fact that we are now responding to a referendum. Regardless of that, my observation at this point is that to a certain extent, the longer we drag this on, the longer we remain in limbo as a community. This issue has divided the community. Therefore, I believe it is in the best interest of our community to bring this issue to a vote as soon as possible, putting the issue to rest and moving on. In that, the current referendum provides us an opportunity to call an election and requires us to do so. I believe it is prudent to do so as soon as possible. And as soon as possible would be May 17th of 2011. I am hopeful that a vote of the people in May of 2011 will bring this issue to closure. I believe it is the right thing to do for all those that are interested, for those that are here this evening, for those that are not here this evening, for those that are impacted by this, and the business community that invested a lot of time in responding to this RFP and do, in fact, do business in our town in servicing trash and trash hauling. I think it goes without saying that as a community, in our current economic times, we have, I wouldn't say more important issues to deal with, but we have many, many issues to get our arms wrapped around. I think it's time to move forward, particularly during this tough economic time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Leger. All right, we have a motion and a second. We've had dialogue discussion from the public. I'll look for
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Hanson.
Based on the possibility that we could maybe build a better mousetrap in 2012, I'd make an amendment to change the election date to the regular primary election in March of 2012.
Second.
All right, so we have a amendment to the motion to move the election to, did you say March?
Yes.
To 2012. And we have a second. No vote or any discussion on the amendment. All right, we'll vote on it. Should we do a roll call on this? Roll call.
Councilmember Hanson?
Aye.
Councilmember Dickey? Nay. Councilmember Cantino?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brown?
Nay.
Councilmember Elke?
Aye.
Councilmember Leger?
Nay.
Mayor Schlum?
Nay.
Mayor, 3-4.
Thank you very much. So the amendment fails. Back to the original motion. And I'll look for those in favor to indicate by saying aye to the motion, which would have the March 17th, 2011, May 17th, 2011 special election. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Mayor, 3-4.
In favor?
4, yeah, in favor.
4-3 in favor. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for the comments out there. All right, we'll move on to consideration of item number 7, possible direction to staff with regards to pursuing agreement with the City of Scottsdale to allow connecting trails between Scottsdale's McDowell-Sonoran Preserve with the Fountain Hills McDowell Mountain Preserve. Mark, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Schlum and members of the council. As you know, the amenity that we have to our west is and continues to gain in popularity. One of the things that the commission has been working for some time now is discussions with Scottsdale on the possible connection between their trail system and ours. There are benefits to both Some of the issues that were raised previously had to do with the major obstacle becoming the usage of horses on the trails in Scottsdale and their desire that we offer a similar opportunity here. A number of weeks ago, the chair of the McDowell Mountain Preservation Commission was before you and talked about the issues that they've been discussing and trying to reach some resolution with Scottsdale towards that issue of horses. The direction he got that night was for him to go back and have a subsequent discussion with the commission and bring it forward to the council with some kind of recommendation. And included in your information this evening is that recommendation in letter form from the chair. He emphasized, and I just want to touch on a couple of those. Really, it came down to a couple of main issues. One is when the trails were constructed and contemplated being constructed, there were rules set aside for the preserve, and that horses would not be permitted in the preserve. And that was the attitude of the commission then. It remains the attitude of the commission now. In addition, when the trails were built, they were not built to the specifications to allow easily for horses to use the trails, and they are relatively narrow, and there's some areas where literally folks would need to step off in somewhat precarious positions to allow a horse to go by. So that was the other consideration. And finally, in the construction of facilities, as you're probably aware, Scottsdale has facilities that are designed and built for horses, and typically they segregate the parking areas to allow the larger trailers to offload their horses before they ride them a short distance to access the trail. And so we do not have those capabilities currently, and do not contemplate putting those, nor are they designed into the Darrow Canyon trailhead that will give us ultimately the access that we're seeking into the preserve. That was not designed into, again, from the premise that we did not allow horses in the preserve. So the recommendation from the commission is that they receive direction from the council to continue to try to pursue an arrangement whereby we would have connections with Scottsdale. And they've looked at two possible connections, segment B and segment B2. Again, the final alignment will be adjusted somewhat as they get out there and do the field work, but I wanted to give you some indication of where the trails would likely connect. With that, I would answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark, and thank you very much to Chair Myers and the MMPC for working hard on this and collaborating further with another organization that borders Fountain Hills, much like you did with the McDowell Mountain, or Maricopa County, in connecting us finally to our preserved land through the McDowell Mountain Regional Park. And we obviously celebrate that, and staff for supporting the commission as you guys do, and helping to get some documents crafted so that we can consider them here to further benefit the town like you guys do so well. So thank you very much. I'll look first for a motion to move.
Mayor?
Yes, I'm sorry.
I want to speak.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, speaker card.
Norman Thorpe.
Welcome, Mr. Thorpe.
Thank you. Good evening and Happy New Year. My name is Norman Thorpe. I'm a seasonal resident in Fountain Hills, and my wife and I own property here at 13013 North Panorama Drive, Unit 223. I was thrilled to hear that this proposal was going to come before the Town Council tonight, and I wanted to add the view of a trail user. My wife and I discovered Fountain Hills when we came to the McDowell Mountain Regional Park to hike some years ago, and that's how we discovered the city. So the trails here are an important amenity that we shouldn't forget about. To add a connecting trail between the Fountain Hills McDowell Mountain Preserve and the City of Scottsdale's McDowell Sonoran Preserve would be a great addition to the area's trail system. Of course, this would benefit hikers on the Fountain Hills side, but there would be other benefits as well. You may not know this, but the much larger trail system on the Scottsdale side is a very well-used trail system. My wife and I and some other people from Fountain Hills were over there for a hike a couple of weeks ago, and in the course of a few hours on the trail, we encountered 30 or 40 other hikers. And we were amazed at how many other people were out on those trails. So with a connecting link between the Fountain Hills side, some of those hikers will certainly come over to this side and or perhaps go to the McDowell Mountain Regional Park. And it will be possible, for example, for someone from Scottsdale to pre-position a car over here at one of the positions that you can hike to, and hike over and then drive home from here. And some of those people would certainly stop in Fountain Hills and use restaurants or go to the grocery store or get gas or stop at a bike shop and have their bike adjusted. And so, and use other services. So there are other benefits that the community will gain if this project moves ahead. Some people while hiking may see the fountain in Fountain Hills and say, let's go see that. Seeing it from a distance over the hills is great, but let's go see it up close. So this offers numerous benefits, and I enthusiastically urge the town council to move ahead on this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thorpe. Any other speakers?
No, sir.
All right. And again, I just didn't wrap up. I shouldn't have wrapped up without thanking the Muscle, the Sonoran Conservancy in town for doing so much on the trails, as well as I hope that we might have a another ribbon connecting ceremony in the future, which was great to celebrate the cooperative effort between the county and the town. What was that, 8 months ago, maybe a year ago now? But terrific work, so I thank you very much for all the organizations and all the staff efforts as well for allowing us to consider this, and thank the City of Scottsdale for partnering with us as well. All right, yes. Would someone like to make a motion or comment?
Just a quick question.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor. It appears from the report you've provided us that none of our trails are capable or equipped to take equestrian, take horse traffic, if you may. I know, however, in reading your report and the dialogue, it talked about the fact that the Scottsdale folks were interested in being able to have their horseback riders have access to our trails. So I guess my question is, if in fact we maintain where we're at now, which is not allowing horses, do you think that will be a deal breaker in terms of consummating this arrangement with the Scottsdale folks?
Mayor Slum, Councilmember Lachey. I have to rely on kind of the information I've received thus far about those discussions, and it seems to us that they have far more to gain than we do. As the gentleman earlier mentioned, their trails tend to be even more heavily used than ours. The access, I think, will potentially benefit them more than it does us. But there are some obvious benefits. So there was just a feeling, I think, on the part of the commission and myself that we were frankly giving away too much and compromising our system too much, and potentially burden us with additional costs and repair to have that increased usage offset.
Sure, and Mayor, and frankly, we don't have the infrastructure to accommodate the horses, so there's not much of a discussion or debate there. And I'm sure the commission has, the Conservancy has reflected on this. But in the event that someone gets on their horse and gallops from the Scottsdale side up, and all of a sudden they're faced with our trailheads, I'm sure there'll be a remedy for dealing with that. Will we have some hay waiting for them there, or, greeting them in the Fountain Hills, or I'm sure there'll be some signage. Is that what you anticipate?
Yes, we would put out some signs that says the grass is greener on that side than it is on the other side. Now, we have talked about that, and the best solution that we could come up with was simply to say that they would need some additional signage on their end so that people didn't go up and find that they couldn't go. So the place to catch them is at the trailhead.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Look for a motion. Councilmember Dickey.
Move to pursue an agreement with the City of Scottsdale for trail connection between the two preserves.
Second.
All right. We have a first, second. Any further discussion? Any other speaker cards?
No, sir.
All right. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Mayor, 7-0.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
Items 8, 9, and 10 will have one report. Item number 8 is consideration of resolution 2011-03 declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the town clerk and entitled Town of Fountain Hills Zoning Ordinance Chapter 24 Medical Marijuana Regulations. Item number 9, public hearing to receive comments on Ordinance 11-04 and proposed text amendment to the Town of Fountain Hills Zoning Ordinance adopting Chapter 24 Medical Marijuana Uses. And then finally, item 10 will be consideration of Ordinance 11-04 as presented. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I apologize, I'm a little nasal. I'm under the weather. Proposition 203, the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act, appeared on the November 2, 2010 ballot, and as approved by the voters, provides for medical marijuana use, sale, and cultivation, including the establishment of medical marijuana dispensaries. The state is currently in the process of creating rules and regulations regarding the licensing of these facilities, and cities and towns have been advised to adopt ordinances as soon as possible. This proposed Chapter 24 Medical Marijuana Ordinance Amendment will provide for marijuana dispensaries or cultivation locations to be permitted only within the C3 zoning district. Medical marijuana locations must meet minimum separation requirements from other uses. Some of those separation requirements are 2,000 feet from any other medical marijuana dispensary or growth site, 2,000 feet from any drug or alcohol rehab facility, 2,000 feet from any child care center, a school, or any educational facility that caters to children, 1,000 feet from any public library or park, and 500 feet from any church. The ordinance prohibits cultivation locations that are not specifically associated with a dispensary. It places specific maximum size limitations on dispensaries, dispensary cultivation areas, and caregiver cultivation areas. It outlines specific requirements of an initial permit to operate as well as to continue operation. Dispensary hours of operation may be no earlier than 9 a.m. and no later than 5 p.m. Security guards must be provided on site at all times, and they must be provided elsewhere in the town when considered necessary by council. Proper lighting must be maintained at all times. Minors must be accompanied by a parent or legal guardian. No on-site doctor is allowed to issue recommendations for medical marijuana. And no on-site sales of alcohol or tobacco. There deserves to be no consumption of alcohol, tobacco, food, or marijuana on site. Staff recommends that the Town Council approve this Chapter 24 Medical Marijuana Zoning Ordinance Text Amendment as presented. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob. Again, we're looking at item number 8, consideration of resolution 2011-03. I'll look for a motion on this item. First, let me ask their speaker cards on item number 8.
Mayor, I just wanted to ask a question. Do you want to take all public comment at this time?
I think we're okay with that. Yeah, 8, 9, or 10.
Okay, so everyone, I have numerous speaker cards. Doug Hebert, followed by Carol Grew.
Thank you. Welcome, Doug.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening.
I spent 26 years with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration and recently retired last year. Since that time, I've been involved with different coalitions, and I'm a board member with the Partnership for Drug-Free America, the Arizona affiliate here in Arizona. And I was also on the steering committee in opposition to Proposition 203. And just to give you a little history, the Proposition 203 was basically set up by the Marijuana Policy Project out of Washington, D.C. And you look on their website, I mean, their goal is to legalize marijuana in the United States, to change the laws. The use of the initiative process and medical marijuana is just one of their strategies to get that accomplished, along with the lobbying and other strategies that they have listed. I want to applaud the town of Fountain Hills for taking a proactive view and the zoning of a possible dispensary here. We don't know whether that will happen or not because of the limited number of dispensaries and the population area here in Fountain Hills versus other areas like Phoenix and Tucson. But I can tell you, with talking with my colleagues in California who did not take a proactive view on that the dispensary issue just really got out of hand. In Los Angeles, they had more marijuana dispensaries than they had Starbucks, and it got so bad that communities were seeing increased crimes as a result of assaults, burglaries, robberies, even murders, and gang infiltration to some of these dispensaries. So they've really tried to pull the reins back on that and take the bull by the horns and limit a lot of the dispensaries there in Los Angeles, shutting a lot of them down, and create zoning regulations because of that. But I think by being proactive and taking a hard look at just what these dispensaries entail and the possibilities of other issues that may arise of having a dispensary here in town, could produce, I think, again, I think the town of Fountain Hills should be commended for taking a proactive view and approve a zoning regulation for a possible dispensary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herbert. Appreciate it.
Carol Group, followed by Maria Peralt.
Welcome, Ms. Grew.
Hello. Hello, my name is Carol Grew, and I am the director of the Fountain Hills Youth Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition. And I, like Doug, would like to thank the town of Fountain Hills, the zoning committee, the town council, mayor, Andrew. I would like to thank all of you, Rick, for really being proactive and partnering with the coalition to come up with a very responsible zoning ordinance. And I believe that through that responsibility, we can work together to keep our youth safe and drug-free. And I know that that's your goal, and that's our coalition's goal. And I thank you so much for what you've done. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Grew.
Maria Peralt, and then David Patino.
Welcome, Ms. Peralt.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Maria Peralt. My husband Paul and I have been residents of Fountain Hills for 19 years. We have 2 children, ages 15 and 11, both attend Fountain Hills schools in town. We chose to live in Fountain Hills so that we can raise our children in a family-oriented and safe, non-toxic environment. Under the Youth Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition of Fountain Hills, I have recently been appointed as coordinator of the Fountain Hills Safe Homes Network. Our goal is to protect our children from the harmful and often deadly consequences of alcohol and illegal drugs. We ask parents to join forces in this effort by not allowing illegal drugs or alcohol to be consumed by anyone under the age of 21 in their homes. We currently have 113 participants, and our goal is to reach 600 by the end of this year. As a mother who's involved with my children and in doing what I can to keep my kids safe and healthy and on a positive track in life, I was shocked when learning the facts on marijuana use in our high school. Marijuana usage among our high school students, in Fountain Hills is currently up to 10% higher than the state average. 23% of this year's juniors report using marijuana on a regular basis. Not a very good percentage when research clearly shows that marijuana usage during high school is one predictor of academic failure. In addition, the National Institute of Drug Abuse recently reported that 1 in 6 people who start using marijuana as adolescents become addicted. The 5 states with the highest teen marijuana usage rates are 5 states that have passed medical marijuana legislation. I believe that the best defense against illegal drug use is not having exposure to it. In my opinion, having a marijuana dispensary in town is not worth the risk, especially when it comes to the health and well-being of the youth of this fine community. Personally, I can't believe I'm even using the words Fountain Hills and medical marijuana dispensary in the same sentence. I've been here 2 decades, and I never thought I would be dealing with this issue in town. But in closing, I would like to thank the Town Council for partnering with the Fountain Hills Youth Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition, and I fully support the Council in passing this zoning ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peralt.
David Patino and Rich Schultz.
Welcome, Mr. Patino.
Hi. I'd like to thank the council for letting me speak. My name is David Patino. I've been a resident of Fountain Hills for about 6 years now. I work for the Fountain Hills School District in the morning. I work for the senior center in town in the afternoons, and I work with the sheriff department at night. So I get to see 3 sides of this issue. I really feel that it would be a wrong thing to have in this town. I get to see the abuse of the children with the drugs, the students. I get to see seniors who need a lot of medication to maintain their independence and their health. And at night, I get to see some drug addicts, people committing drug-related crimes, people that sell drugs, and people driving under the influence. So I'm glad that I get to see all the sides so I know what I'm talking about. I brought with me something that I'd like to show you that I was given. It's empty, as you notice. This was given to me in Arizona. It's medical marijuana cake that was from California and easily gotten in Arizona. Okay? It's by Go Green. It's called a space cake. It's got medical marijuana in it, and the warning is for medical use only in accordance with the proposition in California. I won't go over the number. Health code, and keep away from children. Now, I was able to obtain this with no problem, and I can easily get more. And the cake was destroyed, but this can go to show you how easy this would be. Anybody using medical marijuana, the surplus could possibly be sold or given away to our youth or anybody else that is interested in using it. And I feel we're opening a can of worms that will be very hard to control. And just by this alone, it's just, obviously there's some flaws in the system. And I really think we need to really be careful with it. I feel Fountain Hills is an upscale community, and it's not the place for something like this. Most of the hospitals and doctors and everything, the bigger population would be Scottsdale, so I don't know why there wouldn't be something in that location. And I can see no good for this at all. And I understand that people need it. Some people need it. I don't know how many in Fountain Hills would really need it, but I'm sure there's some. But I really feel it's not the location in this town for this.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr. Patino.
Rich Schultz, Nancy Ordowski.
Good evening, Mayor, Town Council members. Happy New Year. Rich Schultz, town resident for the last 10 years. Tonight I'm speaking on behalf of Rich Schultz and my wife, Patty. Many of you know I have another hat I wear in this town. I support you guys in your ordinance full-heartedly. And I'm also cannot believe that I am also standing up here even discussing an ordinance that for the last 25 years I've been trying to keep kids off all sorts of types of drugs. For the last 6 weeks, we are seeing another epidemic of kids of getting another abuse called spice. My last 2 weeks was very interesting when I went to California and vacationed with my folks who have lived there for the last 35 years. What a California that I used to know and grow up in was much different. Part of that is the economy, but part of that is a proposition that they passed a couple years ago. Like the DEA gentleman said, there is shops all over the place in LA. Luckily, council members such as yourselves are regulating it as best as possible. But what I learned from some detectives as I visited 2 towns very, very similar to Fountain Hills is as they are controlling the dispensaries and kind of gaining a good war, there's another war that's going to have to be battled. And maybe you thought this ordinance at the end, if you all vote yes for it, will be done. I have here in front of me, which I'll give to you, Mayor, is an ordinance that many towns across America who have legalized medical marijuana is the smoke shops. We have 1 dispensary where my mom lives. We have 15 smoke shops. And as you go in these smoke shops, they are providing every source of smoking material for illegal as well as legal medical marijuana. I say that because there's a lot of kids that can't get medical marijuana cards in California, even though it is very easy and accessible. But they go down the wrong path buying this paraphernalia. So after tonight, if you do vote for this ordinance, I would highly suggest you start looking into prohibiting smoking paraphernalia and smoking products. We do currently have, I was in there today, a shop that sells spice, and my time is up, and I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Thank you for that.
Nancy Urdowski, followed by Jeff Cohen.
Welcome, Ms. Radowski.
Hi. Thank you for giving me some time to speak this evening. My name is Nancy Urdowski, and I do want to thank the council for the establishing the zoning for this dispensaries in the responsible fashion that you have. But I wish that you would dispose of them, and it didn't happen here in Fountain Hills. I work with the youth groups in my church. I've been a teacher. I have grandchildren, and I'm very concerned about where this can lead us to go. We have very strong and rigid zoning ordinances in our city for building, for businesses to be established and things like that. We need, even if we have to put up with a dispensary here in Fountain Hills, the zoning needs to be stronger than any other business that we have established in this area. 2 ounces of marijuana makes 150 joints. Every 2 weeks, that's what they'll be allowed to get. And if you don't need 150 joints in a 2-week time period, that's an awful lot of extra marijuana being sold and given away to the other youth, and particularly to the youth. I see as a very detrimental situation to our youth. We already have an economy here in Fountain Hills that is probably more affluent than lots of other places, and unfortunately a lot of the kids have access to money to buy these things, and like the gentleman before me was talking about, all of the extra equipment from the smoke shops and everything. We're willing to spend $55,000 on a quick vote for the single trash haulers issue, but we need to look at protecting our community on this very, very serious issue of marijuana. Any way that we can find to deny having a marijuana dispensary here in Fountain Hills is what I would encourage you to look at. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Radowski.
Jeff Cohen, then Nancy Puffer.
Welcome, Mr. Cohen.
Welcome again, Mayor and Town Council. I'd like to point out a couple things here. Changing the ordinance from 1,000 feet from churches down to 500 feet from churches, what it did is it saved our town. I imagined the possibility of being sued. Okay, that's the only reason I could imagine that we made that change in the ordinance. It also allows a medical marijuana facility in our town. Okay, we're not worried about trash companies trying to sue us because we feel we're in the right. We can sue them. I don't need to go into everything people have talked about as far as the bad that can come from this, because there is no good that can come from this except for the people that actually need it. And if they need it that bad, they can drive to Scottsdale. So I wish you would really take consideration and do whatever you can to completely remove this from our town. Okay? Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Nancy Puffer, then Linda Bordeaux.
I am one of those people who probably would qualify to get a card. My badly broken arm 2 years ago. I have a condition called RSD, very painful.
Ms. Puffer, if you would get closer to the microphone, that way we can...
Very painful.
Thank you.
You can see the difference. I had 2 hips replaced and my horse stepped on my foot. I'm in pain. But you know what? I have a doctor. I have a physician that knows what reaction my body will have to medication. I had years of being a drug counselor. For every action, there's a reaction. If we all went to the beach at the same time, some of us would burn in 10 minutes, and some of us could stay all day. We have no proof of any kind that marijuana is going to have the same reaction for everyone. I tried it in Jamaica. One question that popped into my head, I just read the paper, I just heard about all this, I haven't read the ordinance. I tried it in Jamaica. And I wondered, now who's going to test all this marijuana? Are you going to sit there and take a little puff to make sure it's safe for us? I think I'm just trying to make the point that I think it's a bad idea. I wouldn't zone anything for any of it. I would stay away from it and go into a program that I'm writing and I'm going to present someday, of having every child in our school system, just like sororities and fraternities, belong to a group because friends are what they seek. They would have a name, they would have a pin, they would have somebody to eat lunch with, and the kids at the bottom level who would choose to abuse would spread out among these groups. They would have a purpose. Kiwanis, you name it. Other groups could help these groups. They could meet on Friday nights. We had sororities and fraternities at Evanston High School, and we had something to do. We had a little bit of an identity, and we had friends. I was in the parking lot about a month ago just to see what the kids looked like now coming out of school. And right in front of my face, 2 kids. One had a little plastic bag and the other one gave him some money for it. And I thought, oh my God. It was very sad. But it doesn't have to happen. We need to look at the answers. We need to look at what their needs are. I followed one of these kids home when I saw that happening. And
Ms. Puffer?
I'm done.
Your 3 minutes are up, but I would love to
I really
continue
thank
hearing,
you.
I would love to continue hearing your story, so please don't be a stranger.
I think
Thank you very much.
I'm getting better.
Good. Thank you for being strong and coming forward tonight. Thank you very much.
Linda Bardot, followed by the last speaker, Maria Peralt.
Welcome, Ms. Bordeaux.
Hello again. I'll try to be as brief as possible. The one great thing about being an American is that we are ruled by laws, and Proposition 203 did pass. So we are left as the town to deal with that. And I think I was at the zoning meeting, and I think they did a very good job making sure that they adhered within the law. As Mr. Cohen stated, it was impossible to zone it for 1,000 feet because there is that new church in the center of Colony Drive. So you can't make the zoning so as to not be able to have a medical marijuana clinic. I will surprise and shock some people in the room, and when I tell them that I actually am in favor of this ordinance, I have had family members that have died of cancer that have used medical marijuana, and it did make a difference. I also agree with everyone in this room when I say the last thing I want to see is our youth get involved with this. That is not the intent of the medical marijuana clinic or the use of the substance. I would hope that the state is going to issue 124 licenses for this, and it's up to the state on how many business proposals they get and who they pick. And I would hope that if they do pick someone who wants to set up that site here in Fountain Hills, that it would be someone that would be almost philanthropical with the profits. It's a non-profit setup. They're going to make a lot more money than they need to pay salaries with, and they'll be reserved. And it's my hope that whoever does do that would take the surplus and fund things like the coalition to keep the kids off drugs, come up with programs to get maybe a teen center for our youth, to get them away from that kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that I would like to see happen if there is a dispensary in town. And I don't know if the council has the authority to even add a provision like that under the operation of such a clinic. And like I said, I do want to reinforce that the last thing that I want to see is any kind of abuse of this type of thing, but truly there are people who do benefit a great deal from the relief of this substance, which after all is a plant and was put here by God. I think that's all I want to say. I thank the council again for listening, and I do thank you for taking some of the toughest restrictions, because I did research it on the zoning. So thank you for protecting our town.
Thank you, Ms. Bordeaux.
Maria Peralt?
I think Ms. Peralt's already spoken. Good try, Ms. Peralt. You probably had it on another number as well. Okay. Good. Councilmember Hanson?
Could I suggest that we just get a housekeeping item out of the way, and that would be Resolution 2011-03, just declaring the document a public record?
Correct. Yes.
I would so move.
Yes, that is our next step. Perfect. So we have a motion to, can I get a second on item number 8?
Second.
All right, any further discussion from us on this item? Good. I think if we could just for a moment, Andrew, if you, since the public just spoke on some issues, one of them was why are we allowing it at all? Can you just briefly outline just the state law and why we're addressing this to some
Let's
extent?
just get this one out of the way.
You want to get this out of the way?
Yeah. And then get into the meat of the matter.
Okay.
This is just declaring it a public record.
Correct. Yeah, but there might be people leaving right after this. That was my thought. This will take just a minute. Andrew?
Mr. Mayor,
Delve into it more after.
members of the council, the Proposition 203 had very limited local control provisions placed in it, one of which was the availability for municipalities to have reasonable zoning regulations with respect to medical marijuana dispensaries, cultivation facilities, and self-grow, is what we're going to have to call that. The debate amongst city attorneys has been going on since about September, when it was looking like this had a chance. Some communities went and proactively adopted regulations as far back as early September, before the vote was even taken. There wasn't anyone amongst that group that included all the cities and towns in the state who could interpret reasonable zoning or land use regulations to include a complete ban. I think that we can very safely say we've gone about as far as any community has gone in terms of this ordinance. But much like the other ordinances where we had to craft very specific regulations about use and separation and other requirements, getting to the point of a complete ban probably steps over the line of the initiative. And not wanting to be the only community in the state to take that position, we opted for the most stringent we could come up with. There are, in at least one other state, there are some communities that are currently in a fight with the ACLU over this particular provision, because or type of provision, because they had interpreted their zoning ordinance provisions that mandated compliance with federal law to be in compliance with the zoning ordinance as a means for a complete ban. I wish them well. I really hope they succeed. It would cause a drastic change in everyone's view in the state as well. But for the time being, the only community that I've spoken with personally that's been able to fly under the radar on that provision is one that had it enacted years earlier. All of those who put it in place after their medical marijuana provisions in that state came into place are in the lawsuit with the ACLU. So we'd like to see the outcome of that case to see if maybe it'll trickle over to us as well. But we believe we've gone as far as we can to try and limit these uses. You'll know from separation requirements that you will have no more than one of anything here. There are limited availability in terms of the types of zoning categories, and the spacing requirements make it very clear that that's all you would be able to do. There is a gap in time also between the time when the licensing will happen for caregivers and qualified patients and the dispensaries, that we think we needed to address this. We need to put in place a provision to make sure that Fountain Hills had something in place prior to any licensing happening, so that someone who is more than 25 miles away from a dispensary that hasn't been licensed yet, so can't exist yet, will understand that they still have to be in the C3 category. We thought that was an important thing to get in place prior to licensing being completed in early April.
All right, thank you, Andrew. I just wanted to speak to that, and I know we'll get into more. So let me just go back here, make sure we're following the right process. We're going to close the public hearing, and now we're going to move on to item number 10, and
Mayor?
Councilmember Hanson.
We still need to do number 8.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did
That's
skip that.
declaring it the public record.
Thank you very much. I did skip number 8. So we do have a motion and a second on this, is that
Right.
correct? Good. Any other dialogue, discussion, other than move on to the vote? All right, all in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Mayor, 7-0.
Thank you very much. Now, before I close the public hearing, I'll open the public hearing and request any additional speaker cards. I think we've heard everything. And move on to the public hearing to receive comments on ordinances, which we've done. And can I just close the public hearing since we pretty much already had it open, Andrew? Thank you very much. Close the public hearing and go on to item number 10, consideration of ordinance 11-04 as just presented. We get a motion on the actual ordinance. Councilmember Hanson.
I would so move.
Thank you. All right, discussion? Councilmember Dickey.
I just wanted to go through a timeline that I think is what's going on, that people do have opportunities for other public comment besides what we do here locally. One deadline is actually tomorrow, which is the public comments to DHS, who's going to be the regulating agency. They're going to issue revised regulations on January 31st, and then people, again, can make public comments until February 18th. Then we get into what Andrew was saying, that the act goes into effect on April 13th. They are likely to implement by, dispensaries will likely not be operative until probably August or September due to the time that's required. So I think we're of agreement that an outright ban was just too, it just wouldn't comply with what you would call reasonable, but we were really narrow in where we were doing this. But if there's another level of comfort, you can go to DHS, and I know that others are, to see how they write the rules and regulations if there's something that you want from their level, because then that would be something that we would obviously have to comply with.
Andrew?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Dickey, for instance, the comment related to use of funds, minimum contributions to community efforts, those are the kinds of things that DHS would be more likely to be able to implement, if at all. It certainly falls outside the gambit of our zoning authority, but these are nonprofit facilities, so I think it's worthwhile to make the comments at the rulemaking level where it may actually be implemented.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councilmember Hanson?
This would be for Andrew. I read that Phoenix was going to require a use permit, and they're going to charge $1,300 for it. I mean, is that something they're kind of going out on a limb with?
There are actually two issues there, Councilmember Hanson, that we tried to shy away from a little bit. Some communities are using use permits to hold a public hearing and provide locational discussions prior to implementing their ordinances. With the size of Fountain Hills and the size of the area that we've chosen, we didn't think that it made any sense to have you all be able to hold a public hearing for which there really was no outcome other than that the dispensary was going to go in that location. We thought that was essentially setting everyone up for an angry fight that there was no good result. The licensing issue is an interesting question, because under state statute, we're prohibited from having a license fee beyond $5,000. That's the maximum fee you can charge for any particular category. Phoenix has stepped out there a little bit with the use permit fee as their venture into that area because of their flexibility in where they're allowing them. Their categories are much broader than most of the other cities. I don't know if I can say for any certainty that they are the most flexible, but they're certainly one of the most. And I think that was their means for how they would be able to put the staff resources necessary to evaluating these numerous locations they could have. They've justified that fee by the offsetting cost that it will be to the staff to do it. For Fountain Hills, the staff really isn't going to have as much of a cost issue to evaluate the location, because we know exactly where it can and can't be. So I think that was the reason they went down the conditional use with the fee attached to it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilmember Dickey.
Mayor, Andrew, do you think anybody would be able to present to DHS in public comments that it be taxable, just in general? Or is that something that's off the table?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Dickey, there have been multitudes of folks who have entered into this discussion on taxation, and I think that there are two different discussions. At the DHS level, I have been told, but have not heard directly from anyone from the State Department of Revenue directly, that they are interpreting the state tax authority as already existing for the transactions at these facilities. I've not confirmed that, and it seems a little odd because the Model City Tax Code is based quite a bit on the same principles as the state's sales tax code. However, I have been told by a member of the Model City Tax Commission that one of the earliest things they are going to try and have introduced at the legislature is to have the Model City Tax Code amendment in place so that municipalities have local tax authority in place sometime in this calendar year to be able to tax the transactions as well.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments, questions? We have a motion and a second on item 10, is that correct?
I have a motion, I don't have a second.
Oh, we have a second on the motion as presented. Councilmember Dickey, she didn't do the motion initially, did she?
No, that was Councilmember Hanson.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I just want to also point out and thank all those speakers that came forward again tonight, putting your energies into things that improve the town, and particularly our town's youth. So I encourage you, and Ms. Puffer, thanks for being strong coming up, and please continue to share those ideas. They sound pretty cool. And thank you, staff, for working hard to come up with this, and the P&Z for working hard, and the public engagement to ensure we do the best we can and related to this item. All in favor of the ordinance as presented, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Mayor, 7-0.
All right, thank you very much. Item 11, council discussion direction, town manager. Nothing there tonight. We'll get to the next one. Or you can mention something if you want. Usually it's the request item you want. Next item, summary of council requests and reports on recent activity. First, we'll go over to Councilmember Dickey.
Mayor, I just want to make sure that we look into doing the all-mail ballots in a timely manner.
And then also, town manager, I've got the smoke shop ordinance, for lack of a better term, to hand over to you. Anything you want to report on, town manager, recent activities? Rick?
No, just what's in my report.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now look for a motion to adjourn. Thank you. And a second? Any speaker cards? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Thank you.